Hello everyone and welcome back to the World War II Solitaire board game channel. Today I'm going to do a video which many people have asked me to do. It is a video where we will actually compare Patton's Best to American Tank Ace. As you know, Patton's Best is one of the very first solitaire war games that were ever released, published back in 1987 by the Avalon Hill game company, designed by Bruce Shelley, that later went on to work with Microsoft and Microsoft Studios. He helped design games like Age of Empires, and I believe he also had some part in Sid Meier's Civilization, stuff like that. So yeah, he's a big shot now. He's not doing any more board games, I believe. And yeah, of course, then we also have American Tank Ace 1944 to 1945, published 2022 by Compass Games, designed by well-known solitaire war game designer Mr. Gregory M. Smith. So yeah, Gregory M. Smith has designed plenty of these kind of narrative war games before, but he hasn't designed any tank game before. And I was really looking forward to this one for two reasons. First of all, I love Patton's Best, as you know, and second, I thought I also like Gregory Smith's other war games. The Hunters is a personal favorite, and I also knew that he had a history in the military. He actually served overseas in Iraq as a tanker, I believe a tank commander, or even a commander for a couple of tanks. And with that experience, both the personal, real life military experience with tanks, in combination with being a good designer of narrative war games, I just thought, okay, well, we can't go wrong here. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at these two games. So just two things that I will be saying here before we get going, and that is, first of all, I'm not going to say that there is a winner. And the reason to that is because of the second thing I will say, and the second thing I will say is that these two games, although they share a lot of similarities, they are very different type of games. And that is the reason why I won't say there is a winner, because it would be a little bit strange to say, which game is the best, Pavlov's House or Conflict of Heroes with the solo expansions. They're so different games. It's very hard to say they're good with different stuff. But we're gonna get into that in this video, so stay put and we're gonna find out what I mean. So the first thing we're gonna discuss is the visuals of the games. I gotta say, the board of Patton's Best, that is just horrible. I mean, it's boring colors and it's just flooded with different kinds of information. We have the sequence of play, we have a bunch of different charts, stuff like that. It's just too much. And it's incredibly intimidating when you haven't learned how to play the game. In American Tank Ace, we definitely have more streamlined visual here on the board. Pretty simple. We have some natural background here with some countryside, stuff like that. It is very much improved. And then we have the counters. I gotta say, the counters with Patton's Best, as you can see here, the counters are, for me, they feel very old school, and they feel also quite, tactical. And I really like them. I think they're beautiful. If we look at the counters of American Tank Ace, they are more modern. They have color, they're full color, and they feel more alive. So I would say that they fit the game that they're made for. The tank cards, I gotta say, I prefer the Patton's Best tank cards because you can see they're very detailed. Kind of looks like a blueprint of a tank. I really like that style, and I really think it fits the kind of game which Patton's Best is. Here we see on American Tank Ace the tank cards. They're more colorful, and that's not a problem with me. The problem I have with the American Tank Ace tank cards is the background. So the background of this is a map, an old map, yellow map, a lot of information on this map. We have lines, we have names, we have stuff like that. And then on top of that, we have all of the information on the tank card, ammunition, stuff like that, our crew skills. And it's just a little bit too much. That yellow background, the map, it's too distracting in my eyes. So I definitely prefer the Patton's best one here. And then we have the charts. The charts, well, I gotta say the charts in Patton's best are quite dull. I mean, they're just the basic stuff that you need. It's just numbers and numbers and numbers and numbers. And that's the thing with Patton's best, you know, that there's so many modifiers for everything, and we don't really have that in American Tank Case. So, but I think they could have done them, you know, a little bit more fun perhaps. But you know, this is a game released in the 80s, so you know, that wasn't this, you know, the thing that they did with the games back in the day. So yeah, I definitely appreciate the American Tank Case charts more. The information is laid out in a little bit more friendly way. It's not like, you know, you're browsing the chart of Patton's best, you kind of feel like an accountant, if that makes sense. And let's talk about the rules of these two games. So here we have something that will be a reoccurring thing in this video, and that is that Patton's Best, although it's an awesome game that I like very much, it is a game with some problems. And very ironically, many of these problems have been transferred with American Tank Case. And I think that's a little bit of a shame, because I think when you streamline my game, part of the streamline process should be to remove these problems. But you know, it has happened, and I just want to point that out. So one of the problems with Patton's Best is that the rules are not very good. The rules, it's a complex game, and the rules are just not laid out in a sense that makes sense. It's not really logical for me how the rules are laid out. There's exceptions spread out everywhere in the rule books, and you know, it's just tough to learn the game that way. It took me 7 days to learn Patton's Best, and we're not talking 7 days where I'm doing something else. It took me 7 days. I had vacation, I went up in the morning, I had my coffee and breakfast, and I sat down with the rules. And then I sat down with the rules until midday, where I had to eat lunch, go for a walk with the dogs, so on. I spent the whole day, morning till evening, reading those rules. And it took me 7 days until I could play Patton's Best efficiently, and I still had some rules wrong, which people pointed out during my first playthrough videos. And American Tank Case suffers the same kind of problems, that I feel like the rules aren't laid out in a logical sense, and there's exceptions also spread out, which I think should be summarized on some different charts, stuff like that. And yeah, that's just unfortunate. And I mean, we have seen this. There's quite a lot of questions on Board Game Geek about the rules of American Tank Case. And there's also a lot of people that are complaining about the rules. But there is a big thing here, a big change. Patton's Best was designed in 1987, and the designer answered questions once. In one episode of The General, he answered something like maybe 10-15 questions. And that's it. That's all Bruce did. Then he didn't, you know, as far as I know, post any more, you know, errata answers. The designer of American Tank Case is online on Board Game Geek, on the Facebook group every day. He usually answers your questions within, you know, a few hours. And he has already produced several errata documents which are discussing, you know, the frequently asked questions and so on. I'm hoping that we're gonna see updated rules, because I do think if the rules would be reworked, it would be a lot easier to learn to play this game. And also the sequence of play, which was included in this very first edition, there was some errors to it, which also greatly, you know, contributed to the general confusion. And that's been corrected since. You can download that from the Facebook group and the Board Game Geek, but you have to download it to you know, to get it. And if you don't check out, forums or Facebook, you're not gonna know that it's actually inaccurate, the sequence of play which is included in the original rules. Well, I mean, that's it. And I gotta say, in comparison, like I said, it took me 7 days to learn how to play Patton's Best. I learned to play American Tank Days in Ace in about 1 day. So I mean, that's, of course, there's gonna be a higher learning curve to Patton's Best since it's so much more complex, but it's not going to be that much that the difference is 1 day to 7 days with Patton's Best. So even though the rules in American Tank is definitely could be improved, I gotta say that Patton's Best takes the cake here when it comes to badly written rules. And again, when we're talking about these problems that have followed Patton's Best to follow the American Tank Days from Patton's Best, there is another thing that I want to point out, and that is that both of these games, even, I mean, you can play them for so much, but you are not going to have the rules in your head in a way that you can play fluently without quite often referencing the rules. And I also think that's a little bit bad. In Patton's Best, for example, when you played A Day of Combat, you have to check the rules to see promotion and awards, because that's, you can't keep that stuff in your head. And that's something we also see in American Tank Days. When you finish A Day of Combat, you have to check the rules because it's quite hard to memorize all of these conditions to be promoted and to be awarded different awards. And I mean, okay, with that stuff, I guess I can get it. It would be nice to have a chart so you didn't have to constantly flip in the rule book. Another thing is that when you're purchasing skills from your experience point, which is a part of American Tank Case, there's counters for all of the skills, like for synergy, for the gunner skill, whatever. And if you can't remember what they cost, again, you have to browse the rules. And I just think it's so strange that they have the counters for these skills without putting the cost on them. It would have been so efficient and easy to just put synergy. Okay, this one costs 2. Put a number 2, a small number 2. Gunnery costs 3 or whatever it costs. Put a 3 on it. And that would save the player from actually having to browse the rules. And that's just one thing that popped up to my mind, one of the very first times that I played the game. So it's just a little bit hard for me to see why they didn't think of that when they were, when they were developing the game. Like, yeah, we should put that here so, the player doesn't have to browse rules. But anyway, it is what it is. Both of these games have them, but once you've learned the game, well, you're gonna play it fluently. And again, it is way easier to learn American Tank Case, partly because it's not complex, but also because the designer is answering questions daily on Board Game Geek forums. Okay, so we're gonna get to the game now, and one of the first things you will do in both of these games is to check your combat calendar, and here things are pretty much the same, In Patton's Best, we're gonna have refit, which is pre-decided on the combat calendar. In American Tank Case, we're gonna roll for combat each day, and we might have a day of refit. Other than that, there just isn't too much to say. So game time in these games are quite high, and this is certainly a place where Patton's Best really needed that streamline. So in American Tank Case, we can have a maximum amount of 86 days of combat. I would say that 1 day of combat will usually be like 15 minutes in average. Some will be quicker, some will be longer. And if we calculate then maximum amount of days, which is 86, that would mean a campaign can take up to 21.5 hours. In Patton's Best, we have 190 days, and I would say that the average game will last for 1.5 hours. So we're talking 285 hours for one campaign. That is just nuts. I'm currently doing it, but I'm starting to question my sanity as I'm doing it, because that is way too much to spend in one campaign, one career. Maybe some hardcore gamers will like that, and I gotta admit that I'm kind of liking it, but it's also nuts. I'm just doing it because it is nuts, basically. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, because I mean, when you die, if you spend 200 hours, I'm afraid of what my reaction is gonna be. So yeah, this was definitely a good job to streamline that from 285 hours to 21.5 hours. And again, that's just if you are actually gonna fight every day, which is not gonna happen. You're gonna have days of refit, you're gonna have days where you will be out because you're wounded and you're at the hospital. So, you know, it's not gonna be 21.5 hours generally. I would say perhaps it would be 25 to 50% of that maximum time. But we're still talking, I mean, with the American Tank case, we're talking something like then 5.5 to 12 hours. And with Patton's best, what did I say? It's not 190 days, 285 hours of combat. So we're still talking like 142.5 hours, 70 to 140 hours for one campaign. It's too much. One thing I would say is that I think that this could have been streamlined even further if we look at the other games in the from Gregory Smith, like the Hunters. You will generally have in one career, you will generally have something like 15 patrols, something like that. And 86 is a little bit too much in my opinion, and takes a little bit of the fun away when you just keep repeating you know, the same process that many times. So I think it could have been streamlined even further, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, basically, your goal is to just survive the campaign. So in both Patton's best and American Tank case, it is positive to be seriously wounded and sent to the hospital. I'm wondering if you could you change that rule somehow that it wouldn't be positive to be sent to the hospital? I don't know, because it does feel a little bit strange that you're actually being rewarded for being sent to the hospital. Maybe you would lose all your skills, something like that. I think would be appropriate. So the first thing that we do after we fill out our combat calendar and after action report is, in Patton's best, we go to the operational phase. This is pretty much skipped completely in American Tank case, and I think this is a little bit of a shame, because I gotta admit, the operational phase, which is very much strategical in nature in Patton's best, is one of my favorite parts of that game. Now, one problem with Patton's best is that the operational phase is completely broken. There is no, you have an exit area, you have an entry area. There's a general consensus among the gamers of Patton's best that your mission is to capture at least one exit area. But that does not discuss, that does not, there is not something that is discussed in the rules. The rules does not say anything else than, okay, you're supposed to stay alive. So the gamer in you which wants to win and which wants to game things will think, okay, well, so I'll use all my time in my day to call for artillery strikes, air strikes, ammunition, even though I don't need it. We'll check every adjacent area for enemy reinforcement, stuff like that, just to make the day pass, the time pass. And I mean, then once the day is over, you win the scenario. So it's extremely broken in Patton's best. And then we have this thing that, okay, well, capture one exit area and we're good. Well, during the winter months where you don't have a lot of sunlight, many hours of daytime, and you have, due to poor weather, you have increased travel time, there's gonna be days where it's impossible to even capture one exit area, and I literally mean impossible. It's not going to be possible. Even if you roll, you know, the best roll you can imagine to do, it's not going to be possible. So I mean, it was incredibly broken. It is incredibly broken, the operational phase, even though it's fun. So I think this is a missed opportunity that it could have been taken, and it could have been greatly improved, perhaps streamlined a little bit, and it, you know, for me, it's just a missed opportunity, because it was so broken in Patton's best that, you know, a few fixes and a little bit of streamlining could have been really fun. In American Tank case, we do have this step is completely skipped, but we have a little bit of an operational phase, and that is, I'll show it here on the screen for you. We have an operational map which will track all the major operations. They basically don't even affect gameplay. The only thing is that when you roll for combat or for the mission of the day, you might trigger a major operation. Doesn't change gameplay whatsoever. The only difference is if you have a successful mission, you will be granted 1 additional experience point because it's a major operation. Other than that, you can also barter for artillery before you actually enter the battle. You can pay supporting troops a prestige point, and you will get access to an immediate artillery strikes. So that's a little bit, you know, almost like Patton's best, what you're calling for artillery. But that's it. That's the only thing that we have that, you know, left of the operational phase from Patton's best, which have made it into American Tank Ace. So let's go to the battle sequence now, and I think in the battle sequence it's really where you feel that it's most apparent this all of this streamlining has happened, and the first part of the sequence of play in battle in Patton's best is the spotting phase, and now this is removed completely. You can see everything and you can fire at everything with the exception of an AT gun the very first round in American Tank Ace. In Patton's best you got a spot. It's a whole procedure, and it's kind of complicated because you will use your crew. First of all, the crew member has to have a line of sight, and then you take his crew rating, and if it's half, if it's the crew rating or lower, you will spot. If it's half of it rounded down, I think, yeah, rounded down, or less, it's also identified. And then you have so many modifiers. Oh man, you have so many modifiers. If they fired, if they're small, if they're medium range, if they're in woods, there's just too many modifiers. I gotta say, the spotting phase could be fun, but it was mostly annoying. So I think getting rid of the spotting phase, that's the best thing. That is the best thing of the whole streamline. The spotting phase, just get rid of that. So we have different terrain in both of these games, and in Patton's best, you know, each unit could be in different terrain. I could be in one type of terrain, and my enemies could be in a different type. So enemies could be in woods, in towns, stuff like that, in open areas. I can be hold down, and I think in American Tank Ace, all of us share the same kind of terrain. So if we're in the woods, everyone is in the woods. And I think in Patton's best, this did make for some very interesting and unique situations. But again, quite annoying. Every time you spawn an enemy in Patton's best, you roll for direction. First, you roll to identify, then you roll for which phase they are, which direction they're facing, and then you have the roll for terrain, and it gets very tedious. You have to roll so much. I do like the terrain system in American Tank Ace. Okay, we're fighting in the woods. Everyone is in the woods. We're done. Good job. Another thing which is very streamlined in American Tank Ace is distances and areas. So in American Tank Ace, in half of the missions, in attack and assault missions, the enemy will only be able to be in free zones. In movement of contact and defense missions, the enemies are going to be able to be in 5 different zones. We have short, medium, and long distance, just like in Patton's best. However, in Patton's best, instead of 3 and 5 zones, we actually have 18 different zones, and that's not counting our zone. So I think, again, this 18 zones, it really did make a lot for some very unique and fun and tense situations in Patton's best. But if you want to streamline a product, you can't keep those 18 zones, and you know, you had to do something about it. And so again, it's very much streamlined. So one cool thing with American Tank Ace is that even though it's greatly streamlined, We also see a very great diversity among our enemies, which we don't see in Patton's Best. In Patton's Best we have 12 types of enemy vehicles. In American Tank Case we have 20 types of enemy vehicles. In Patton's Best we have 3 kinds of infantry. In American Tank Case we have 6 different kinds of infantry. In American Tank Case I believe we have either 4 or 5 type of, I believe maybe 4 80 guns, and we have 1 less in Patton's Best. So I do like that because it keeps the game exciting with that many types of especially the vehicles. Like if you get the vehicles, you're never sure what you're gonna get. If you get an SPG in Patton's Best, most of the times it's just gonna be a Stug. And that's not the way it works with American Tank Case. You know, you're constantly on edge, like, oh man, what is this gonna show up? Is this a Nashorn? Is it a Martyr that I can easily kill? So I really like that with American Tank Case. One thing that is a little bit weird is in both of these games, I would say, is the tiger response. So in Patton's Best, I've played, I don't know, 100 missions perhaps altogether, and I've never seen a tiger. I've never seen a tiger except the Panzer IVs, which everyone thought was a tiger but ended up being a Panzer IV. In Patton's Best, I would say the chance of actually spawning a tiger is something like maybe 2%, which I'm guessing is pretty realistic. In American Tank Case, it's 10%, so that's a pretty big chance of spawning a tiger every time we have a tank, that should be said. I think 10% is way too much because I've met so many tigers in American Tank Case, where I think in Patton's Best 2%, while it might be realistic, I think it's too little because I think it gets a little bit boring never getting to see that actually tiger. I'm the Tiger 2, which exists in both of these games, could be a 2 or 1% just to keep it exciting, you know, to hunt that Tiger 2. But I think 2% is too low for the tiger. I think 10% is too much. So I could really see both of these games could balance that out to perhaps 5 to 4%. I think that would be a better ratio. But again, I mean, this is a narrative streamlined game that is not gunning for realism like Patton's Best is. So I mean, in both of these games, you are acting as the tank commander and you will be issuing orders to your different crew members and to yourself. And this is also greatly streamlined. In Patton's Best, we can issue a total of 27 different orders. In American Tank Case, we can issue 15 different orders. So almost half of that, which we have in Patton's Best. In Patton's Best, you can issue 5 orders, or at least you can issue 1 order to each of your crew member, including yourself. In American Tank Case, you can only issue 2 orders in every turn. So I feel a little bit handicapped in American Tank Case, and it is also, I mean, quite unrealistic that you can order your gunner to shoot, your loader to load, and in the same time you can't order your assistant driver, for example, to fire the bow OMG. Feels a little bit strange, but again, it's a streamlined game, so I understand how Gregory Smith had to kind of narrow it down. So I just briefly want to discuss some of these specific orders which I think have been greatly improved in American Tank Case. So again, Patton's Best is a very fun game, and I think the reason why many people shy away from it is not only the incredible complexity and the very, very steep learning curve, but it is also how complicated it is to play. So in American Tank Case, if we want to fire our main gun, we check if we have close, medium, or long range, and then we check if any of our 7 die roll modifiers are active. And it's on the same chart as, you know, the medium, the short, medium, long range. So it's really easy to very quickly determine are any of these modifiers active or not. In Patton's Best, we have 25 different modifiers with firing our main gun. And I mean, it's just modifier after modifier, and some of these modifiers, it's not like, you know, a +1. It says detract the crew rating of your loader, detract the crew rating of your commander, detract the or subtract the crew rating of your gunner. And you know, there's all these numbers. I'm not kidding when I tell you that when I play Patton's Best, I sometimes need to use a calculator, pencil, and paper to actually be able to write down and to calculate what I need to roll. It's that intense, it's that insane, and that is just for your, you know, main gun to hit. Then you have to check if you have a rate of fire. It's also a very long process, and then you have to check if you penetrate, which you also have to do in American Tank Case, but it's, you know, quick and easy. In in Patton's Best, it's not. The modifiers from determining if you kill with HE, we're talking again like 10 additional modifiers. So I mean, this really needed streamlining, and I'm happy to see that this was streamlined because, you know, as a Patton's Best fan, I was thinking about American Tank Case for quite a long time before it arrived. I pre-ordered it like 2.5 years before it was actually published. And as you're playing American Tank Case, Patton's Best, you're thinking, okay, I hope he gets rid of this. This sucks. And then you're playing something else and you think, I hope he doesn't touch this because this rocks. And yeah, this is one part that really sucked in Patton's Best. It's just too much, man. And that will bring me to another point, which is the movement system. Oh my word. The movement system in Patton's Best, the rules regarding the movement system and the charts and the diagrams are the most bizarre rules I've ever seen in a board game. It just does not make any sense at all. And I will tell you, if you haven't played Patton's Best, well, see if you Google the rules and try to understand the movement system. It took me a while, and I'm still not 100% sure about it. So usually I will not even try to advance or reverse because it's just, I just can't be bothered. I feel like I had a good grasp of the movement rules, but then, you know, a few weeks later you're like, and you're like, I'm not gonna bother. So again, with American Tank Case, we can move forward or we can reverse, we can angle our hull. We will roll on a chart to see if we're immobilized. Can be a high risk of being immobilized if we have bad weather. That's it, we're done. Good job, Gregory Smith, good job. Because I don't know what they were thinking when they designed the movement rules of Patton's Best. But again, they're the most bizarre, strange, complicated, complex rules I've seen in a board game. So anyway, I gotta say that all in all, Patton's Best is a highly tactical affair when it comes to the battle sequence, where American Tank Case is not so very much tactical, but more of a narrative experience. In Patton's Best, when you have, for example, you have a Panther coming at you, which have, of course, superior frontal armor. There is so many ways that you can choose to deal with this situation. You know, you can try to hold down, you can try to pop smoke and just try to wait for your friendly task force to take the Panther out. You can try to move closer, and you know, you can try to retreat. There are just many ways to try to deal with this Panther, where in American Tank Case, there are choices, but most of them are quite obvious. If you're fighting infantry, keep at medium range and they can't fire Panzerfaust. Stay buttoned up and they can't hurt you. Just take your time and take it out. If you fire against half track, well, fire at short range and just use HE. That's it. If you got infantry present, stay at medium range. We go to a tank, it's the same tactic. If infantry are present, stay at medium range, otherwise go to close range. Instead of HE, you will use AP. If we got a tank with superior frontal armor, which is higher than our penetration value, well, we're gonna have to move in for a flank shot. That's basically our only chance. Some people will say, well, you can use Willie P, and on a roll of 6, or if it's on a roll of 1, well, the enemy will, you know, the crew will abandon the tank because they think it's on fire. But I'm not gonna fire damn Willie P 2 shots and hope for a roll of 1, because that's not going to happen. I'm going to attract that guy's attention and he's going to take me out. Believe me, I tried it too many times. So the only thing you can do is move in for a flank shot, and that's the only thing you can do. Or you can retreat, which I will never do. If no one is seriously wounded, if I have no damage, I'm not going to retreat. I'm going to stay in the game. And I have to say that even though I understand it had to be streamlined, I do miss the many options and choices that we have in Patton's Best. In American Tank Ace, you can do this, and that's basically it. Firing at infantry, you can choose. Do you want to fire the machine gun or the HE? It doesn't really matter. And again, I understand how it had to be streamlined, and then that will be the effect of it. But that is also why I'm saying that American Tank Ace is more of a narrative experience, at least the battle sequence, where Patton's Best is more tactical. You can do, there's so many things you can do. There's so many, different type of orders. You have 18 different zones of enemies, where in American Tank Ace you have like 3 or 5. So, and you can perform half of the orders and only 2 per turn, where in Patton's Best you perform 5. So continuing through the sequence of play after the battle or the end of our orders and the enemy's fire, we have end of turn events. And the big difference here between Patton's Best and American Tank Ace is that in Patton's Best we have the friendly fire sequence, where all of your friendlies will fire once at each and every enemy which is present on the board, and depending on their enemy type, your friendlies will have a 10 to 60% chance to take him out. If it's a tiger, it's going to be 10%. If it's a truck, it's going to be 60%. They also have, if they don't kill them, they have a 10 to 40% chance to put smoke on them. Well, in American Tank Ace, this is completely removed. Instead, we have end of turn events in American Tank Ace, which we also have in Patton's Best. And here, just like in Patton's Best, your friendlies can act again. Although in American Tank Ace, this would be the first time they act. There is about a 27% chance that that your friendlies will try to help you. You can either roll destroy 1 random vehicle, destroy 1 random AT, or destroy 1 random infantry. However, many of the times that you get it, there's not going to be that type of enemy on the board. I tend to roll destroy 1 random AT gun quite often, and usually there's no AT gun to destroy. So there's definitely not 27% of the times that you actually get help. I would say perhaps 10%. In Patton's Best we have the same. We have friendly artillery, we have flanking movement, where you again will get to roll against each enemy with a very nice modifier. So the big difference here, I would say, is that your task force does feel quite useless compared to Patton's Best. In Patton's Best, hunkering down, popping smoke, getting hold down, that's usually a very good tactic against some dangerous enemies, especially AT guns. Your friendlies will deal with these guns eventually, where in American Tank Ace, I'm gonna say that's not a good tactic, because enemy reinforcements are highly likely, and yeah, that's not very good. So I wouldn't do that tactic in American Tank Ace. Talking about reinforcements, I'm gonna say that is another problem that we have in Patton's Best that have unfortunately followed to American Tank Ace. So I really don't enjoy this, and I know that I'm not alone with this. Many people complain about it with Patton's Best, that enemy reinforcements is just way too likely. During each end of turn event, there is about 20% chance, 25 in a counterattack in Patton's Best, that you will have enemy reinforcements. And this just creates a situation, where you have a never-ending battle. So this is something I really hope that would be streamlined in American Tank Ace, but it's not really. In American Tank Ace, each end of every turn, we have about 18% chance to get enemy reinforcements. And I just think it's way too frequent. Because I had battles where, just enemies, and you keep rolling that reinforcements. It definitely, I like the idea of enemy reinforcements, because it keeps you, on the edge of your seat. It keeps you excited, but it's way too frequent. 18 to 20% is too frequent. So this could definitely have been even further streamlined. But I gotta say, in American Tank case, where we might have, a lot of reinforcements, a game will usually not take too long anyway. Even with a lot of enemy reinforcements, might take like 40 to 45 minutes with a game, but in Patton's best, we're talking hours upon hours upon hours, until you just feel like, please take me out. Please, 88, can you shoot at me? Because I want this to end. And that's, because of how streamlined American Tank is, we're not going to have that situation there. While we're on the topics of problems that have followed Patton's best to American Tank case, I want to bring up one more thing. So in both of these games, you can kind of game yourself to a victory. In Patton's best, your only victory condition is to survive. So we talked about this briefly before, that you can just spend your days calling for artillery, airstrikes, whatever. Just make the day, daytime past, spend the daytime, and you will survive and win. You can do a similar thing in American Tank case. It is if you're ever at long range and you move backwards, you have an automatic defeat, and basically you have retreated from the battlefield. There is no penalty whatsoever from this. You can retreat every game that you want, no problem. The only thing is that if you only get defeats for the 86 missions, you're not going to win, because the victory conditions are, during the whole campaign, you have to have at least 11 victories to have a victory. You have to have, I think, 5 to have a draw, 1 to 4 you have a defeat. So the thing is here, though, that you could potentially retreat every time that you see a dangerous enemy, and then you could pick your battles and pick 11 really easy battles. For example, in the first 4 months, or in the first 2 months, we're going to have a 30% chance of only spawning infantry, which can't damage you. In the following 2 months, we will have a 20% chance to only spawn infantry, which again cannot hurt you as long as you're buttoned up and at medium range. So I could potentially decide to only fight a battle when I'm only having infantry, and if I do that for 86 missions, I'm pretty sure I could do that. I would find 11 missions with only infantry, so I would fight these, and anytime I fight an SBG, 80 gun or tank, just reverse, retreat, and I'm done with it. And just as in Patton's best, that would kind of ruin the game, of course. It's not kinda, it would ruin the game, but there is a part of me which is really hard to fight, and that part wants to do it, because I'm a gamer. I've been playing PC games and video games since I was a kid. I've been playing board games since I was a kid, and I want to win. So there's a big part of me that wants to game the system. And it's sometimes you feel like, wait, am I doing this? Because that gamer in you will try to trick you. It will try to trick you to do this that you might not actually want to do. So it would be really easy to fix this problem, and I have actually discussed this with the game designer, and I think he will add it to the coming errata. You could have a penalty if you retreat, for example. You don't get experience points, because now you do. If you retreat, if you have 3 defeats, you will have 1 experience points. You can buy some nice skills. Another reason to do it. If you retreat, you're not going to have any penalties whatsoever, no penalty to promotion like you have if you abandon your tank. You will have a penalty to your promotion. And I think those things could be added. If you retreat, no experience points, there is going to be a penalty to your promotion. If you are defeated 10 times in a row, well, the game is up. You're going to be demoted to corporal, and you're not going to be a tank commander any longer. I just think that would be a good idea. And while we're on the subject of problems following into American Tank case, I am going to mention one more. Okay, so it's quite an odd one, and that is that in Patton's best, you have to use your own markers for stuff that's going to be impossible to remember. And this is especially in Patton's best. For example, there's a bunch of modifier. For example, if a tank or if any enemy fires, the next turn they're going to be easier to spot. You're going to have a -1 die roll modifier. There is no way to remember this because there are no markers, and sometimes you have so many enemies that remembering which one fired after all of the other stuff that has happened after that, because after enemy fires you're going to have random events, you're going to have a lot of stuff happening, and then it's your turn, and then you're going to spot And now you're expected to remember who fired last turn without markers? How is that going to happen? So in Patton's Best you will use markers to, or I do, I put some red cubes on everyone who has fired, stuff like that. And there's more examples of that. There's plenty of examples of that in Patton's Best. And unfortunately, this problem has followed into American Tank Ace. A great example is if you have friendly artillery, it might force the enemy tanks to button up. That will give them a -1 die roll modifier when attacking you in future turns. There is no modifier for this, so you gotta use a marker. If an enemy starts engaging you, or if you engage an enemy, in every turn that follows, they will only target you. Again, there are no markers. So you gotta just remember, you might have 5 different enemies, and you have to remember the next turn, okay, which one targeted me last turn, because they should target me again instead of rolling to see if they actually targeted me. And I mean, there should have been a marker for that, like enemy acquired, something like that. Put that on enemy. That enemy is gonna fire at you. Now I just have a system where I put enemies that target on me, I put them on the edge of the areas. If they don't target me, I put them in the middle. But if you have a bunch of enemies with dig-in modifiers, sorry, dig-in markers, it just gets flimsy. And that could really have been improved. And I think it is a little bit strange to see. I mean, this is Compass Games, not a small game publisher, and it's 2022. So I gotta say, Compass Games did fail here. They should have included those markers, and hopefully we'll see that in either future prints or at least in the sequels following this game. So after the battle is over, we will fill out our after action reports, and these are very similar. After that, we have a very fun part of the game, which are the RPG elements. And I gotta say that this is really where American Tank Ace shines. I really like the RPG elements of Patton's Best. We would track each of our individual crew members, we would name them, they would have different stats of how good they are, and during refit, if they have a 35, I believe, in a combined stat, we could upgrade to a new tank. I believe if we had 25 or higher, we could train our gunner with the gyro stabilizer. So I really like that part, and it's so great to see that the designer has built on this and improved it even further. And in American Tank Ace, while we don't track our individual crew members' stats and names, we will have skills for all of them, and we will have experience for our commander. With that experience, we can buy skills for our different crew members, and I love this part. And I can say that while American Tank Ace does not have a lot of choices when you're in battle, or at least not as many choices as Patton's Best, it does have many tough choices when it comes to this part, because it's always a tough choice. Should I get synergy for 2 experience points? It's a really good skill, but you lose it really easily, because if one crew member is sent to the hospital or killed, you will lose it. Or should I get gunner? Because I mean, the gunner, that's usually the one that will save you when you're fighting something big and bad, like an AT gun or a tank. But if I lose the gunner, well, I lose that skill. So here we have many and tough decisions, and I really love this system, because it really creates an addictive kind of gameplay where you're, oh, I just want to play one more mission, because if I play one more mission, I'm going to have that experience point. I will be able to buy that last skill for my tank commander, the expert skill for the Sherman tanks, and oh, I'm going to be so dangerous. I'm going to take out so many tanks with that, and that's just awesome. And again, this is where American Tank Ace shines, and it's definitely way better than Patton's Best. The only thing here that I don't like, which I also think is a little bit of a missed opportunity, is that we don't track crew member names, and we don't really track them anything else than their individual skills. And I think that's a little bit strange, since I do think that American Tank Ace is so much more narrative in its nature that it would make much more sense to track individual crew members and their names and all of their stuff in American Tank Case, but we don't. So the community has already made downloadable stuff and charts where you can actually track your crew members, individual crew members, besides the commander. So you can go ahead and download that, but I am not really a guy who likes to do that. I want to have everything in the box of the game. I don't want to go download a bunch of stuff. Of course, I'll look at the errata, stuff like that, but I mean, I usually don't download it. I look over it and that's it. So yeah, I'm hoping in sequels we'll see further detail on our other crew members. In American Tank Case and in Patton's Best, we do track our tank commander, and in American Tank Case, of course, his stats, as we do with all of the different crew members, their level, sort of, 1 to 10, and then promotions and awards. In American Tank Case, we also track this stuff, promotion and awards, and again, it is greatly, and I really mean greatly, improved. Getting awards and promotions is possible in Patton's Best. Some are even easy to receive, while in American Tank Case, I meant to say, in Patton's Best, it's basically impossible almost. I've never been given an award except a bunch of purple hearts, which doesn't do anything, and I've never been promoted. And in fact, in Patton's Best, where it's actually really hard to kill enemy tanks, to get the last promotion, you would need like, I think, 300 experience points. That's something like killing 75 Panzer IVs. And I mean, in 100 games, I've perhaps killed maybe 10 tanks, maybe 15 perhaps. But 75, yeah, good luck with that in Patton's Best. Ain't gonna happen. So this, again, greatly streamlined, greatly improved in American Tank Case. We also track our prestige level and prestige points in American Tank Case. When you are awarded and promoted, you will get prestige points. For your prestige points, you can buy artillery in the beginning of your mission. You can upgrade your tank. You can do a little bit of different stuff, and it's just so fun. It's right up there with the crew stuff. It's, you know, a lot of RPG going on. Also, when the battle ends, you will scour the battlefield, look for trophies. You find some stuff sometimes. You can trade that for items that will help you. You can trade it for, again, for your task force members to help you out a little bit more, to get extra mortar missions and stuff, extra artillery. So I also really like that part of the game, and I am really much looking forward to the future games to see how this can be even further improved. So of course, in these two games, we have a bunch of different tanks because they are tank simulators. And I gotta say that I do prefer this system in Patton's Best. Not the upgrade system itself, because in Patton's Best, if you have, you know, the combined experience of your crew, you can upgrade to a newer tank. Or if you're destroyed in American Tank Case, you're gonna need the prestige points and prestige level. You know, that's the same. They work pretty good, both of those systems. But the tanks themselves in Patton's Best, it's just a delight to try out all of the different tanks. And I think the reason to that is because, again, the battle sequence of Patton's Best is so highly tactical and complex and detailed that even the slightest differences will be noticeable, where in American Tank Case, they're not. Another problem I see with American Tank Case is, compared to Patton's Best when it comes to the tanks, is that in Patton's Best you have, you know, your standard M4s, different versions, then you have the Jumbo and you have the EC8. If you upgrade to the EC8 or any other 76mm from a 75mm Sherman, well, there's gonna be a big difference, and I really mean it, a big difference. Your AP is gonna be greatly improved and your HE is gonna be worse, which was the actual case of the 76mm. In American Tank Case, when you upgrade from a 75 to a 76, it's barely noticeable. I believe your penetration value goes from 6 to 7, which, I mean, that usually doesn't help you out too much. I think that's a little bit of a shame. Because it's American Tank Case is a damn hard game. It is very hard. You're not very likely to survive or win the campaign, except you spend most of the time in the hospital, which I did. And it would have been fun to see that 76mm upgrade a little bit better. Then we have the jumbo tanks, and the jumbo tanks are interesting, right? Because the jumbo tanks, they have great improvement on their armor, but it is a game, so we can't give them just improvements. We also have to give them a little bit of a negative side. This was, done geniusly in Patton's Best, where a jumbo tank would be the lead tank more often, and the lead tank is more frequently targeted by enemy troops. Makes a lot of sense. Made riding in a jumbo quite horribly, but choosing the jumbo for a defense mission, oh, that's genius. In American Tank case, we have the jumbo tank, so the advantage is of course that you have really strong armor, and the disadvantage is that you don't have a big ready rack. I just find that very strange. The 75 is decent. It doesn't have such a small ready rack. I think it has perhaps even a normal size. I can't remember right now. But the 76mm jumbo tank, it has like a ready rack of, I believe, like 4 or 6 rounds, something like that. It's tiny, so you're never gonna use that tank. That disadvantage is both strange, because I don't think the jumbo tanks did have a smaller ready rack. It's both strange for that reason, and I think sad, because with that big disadvantage, I don't really see anyone using the jumbo tank. With Patton's Best, the disadvantage, was not so big that you wouldn't use it. You would use it for some situations, where in American Tank case, I never see myself using that tank. And that's a shame, because it's an awesome tank and I want to use it, but not with that disadvantage. So that's a little bit unbalanced, I think. One big point up for both of these games is in Patton's Best, we got the Firefly to play around with. Oof, it's so fun. And in American Tank case, we got the M26 Pershing tank. So that's a really awesome surprise and a really nice bonus for both of these games. And a plus for American Tank case is that the M26 Pershing can actually be used in the campaign where you drove an M4 previously, but in Patton's Best, the Firefly can only be used officially by the rules in a separate kind of optional rules campaign. And there you have it. That's American Tank case and Patton's Best. And I just want to point out that I know that I've been talking a lot about the problems of these two games in this video, and I'm not bashing on any of these two games, because I love both of them. I just find it ironic and a little bit interesting that the problems that we saw in Patton's Best have also some, that many of them has come along for the ride of American Tank case. I also wanted to, point out these problems, because to give these two games a fair comparison, it would be strange to only talk about the positive sides of these games and not the bad sides. And I mean, I know there are people who really don't take critique in a good way, but again, I gotta say, I love both of these games, and there are no perfect games. All of my games that I have played have problems. Some have more, some have less, but I've never played a board game without problems. So anyway, that being said, I want to say again that I know that you guys want me to say, okay, this is the winner, but I'm not going to do that, because it's these two games are so very different. They have a lot of similarities. Of course, American Tank Ace is a streamlined version of Patton's Best, but with that streamline, the designer has also made it a very different game. I mean, in Patton's Best, I would say it has a strategical nature with the operations phase, a deep tactical nature in the battle phase, and then it has narrative and RPG elements, where in American Tank Ace, I would say it's a strong narrative title, very much feels like playing B-17, the Queen of the Skies, the Hunters, and then you have light tactical elements, and you have a strong RPG presence. So, that's quite different, isn't it? And basically, I mean, in Patton's Best, you're much more in fate of your own destiny with the choices that you can make in the tactical and strategical situations, where in American Tank Ace, well, to be honest, you're mostly in for the ride. And that is not a bad thing for American Tank Ace. That is just, you know, some days I might feel like I want to play something more complex, and then I will play Patton's Best if I have the time, a lot required, at least 2-3 hours, and if I have the brain energy, and again, a lot required. If I feel like I want to play something narrative with RPG elements, I'll play American Tank Ace. And the great thing with American Tank Ace is that it's quick to play. It doesn't take 3 hours to play, and you don't need a bunch of brain power either. Of course, you're going to have some brain power. It's not like, you know, playing Snake on your Nokia, but it's not, you know, comparable to what you need to play Patton's Best. So I can also see, you know, me, okay, I have 1 hour to play. What should I play? I'll go with American Tank Ace. So Bruce Shelley, the designer of Patton's Best, did actually speak about making sequels to the game, but they never came to be. However, with American Tank Ace, the designer has already confirmed that some of the sequels are almost completed. We have British Tank Ace, we have German Tank Ace, and we have Russian Tank Ace, or Soviet Tank Ace. And I'm really excited to hear that, because of course, with Patton's Best, you wanted more after playing Patton's Best, and I feel the same way with American Tank Ace. Another great thing with the sequels is, I think that is also a great opportunity both for the designer and the publisher to director from the publisher company to improve upon these games, since, I mean, there are a few things. Even though you might have a different opinion about what's good, what's bad, there are a few things like the rules, for example, that is quite obviously, no matter what you think, they could be improved. And I think the sequels are a great opportunity to improve upon a great system. So I'm really excited to see the sequels to this game. So while we're on the subject of tank games, I just want to note that there are other tank games out there. We have actually we have 4 retail solo World War II tank games. And the first one is going to be Lone Sherman. I highly recommend this one. It's a game book by Mike Lambo. The other one is one-page World War II Tank War Ardennes by Noah Patterson, I believe his name is. Yes, Noah Patterson. Both of these are inexpensive. You can get them from Amazon. This game, one-page World War II, you can get it at War Game Vault for I think $2.99, or you can get from Amazon soft cover for $10, I believe it was, hardcover for $20. There's 2 other retail games you can get, which are tank games. However, they are multiplayer with solo modes. First one is Built for War, and the second one is Tank Duel, Enemy in the Crosshairs. So these are 2-play games with solo modes. There are quite a few print and play games with tank theme where you are the tank commander, and they're also actually quite fun. And the 3 I would recommend is The Last Tank. I believe his name is Yoge Aroka, and Panzer Dice, which is co-designed by Yoge Aroka and Miguel Duran, I think his name is. And then Miguel Duran designed also the sequel, which is Panzer Dice 2, The Last Battle. One really cool looking print and play tank game, which looks very much to be alike Patton's Best and American Tank Ace, is Tank Commander series by Joe Carter. Unfortunately, you can't find those games on Board Game Geek. However, there is a Facebook group called, I think it's called Tank Commander Tabletop Series, and you can find the game on War Game Vault. I haven't played it personally, but it looks really awesome, and it's a shame that there isn't a retail release, because I would buy it really fast. I personally don't do those print and play games where you have to do counters and stuff. I just don't have the time, patience, or, you know, the equipment to do it, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd buy that game in an instant. I would like to end this video by saying something, and that is that, again, all of the stuff that I've said here, the majority of it at least, it is my personal opinions. So while I might consider some stuff bad, other people might consider it good. Let's try to take an example here. For example, the fact that we don't track individual crew members. I missed that from Patton's Best. Some other people might think, well, that's good, because I don't want to waste my time doing that. Another example is the spotting phase. I think it's good that it's skipped and streamlined in American Tank Case. Some other person might think that's bad. So don't shoot the messenger here. I'm just trying to, you know, because I've been asked to, I'm just trying to share my experience and my opinions. And there might be some error in the video. I really did mean no offense. I've noticed that this community is very, very delicate, and you say 109 instead of 109, or 303, 303rd Squadron instead of 303 Squadron, and people freak the out. So take it easy, guys. Just trying to do you a favor here. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, super thanks to Gregory Smith for all of the support of American Tank Case on the Board Game Geek forums and on the Facebook group American Tank Case, 945 to 944 to 945. We also got an organized play going right now. We're over 20 people who are invading Europe together. So if you got the game and if you want to join the group, or if you got the game on pre-order, go ahead and join us and prepare for the invasion. Other than that, I just want to say that if you have any questions, comments, let me know in the comments section. I will do my best to reply. I know a lot of you guys have been wondering about what I feel, you know, with these two games. Perhaps there was one point that you were wondering about that I didn't bring up. Just ask me in the comments section and I will do my best to reply. Guys, don't forget, if you're not subscribed, I would be so happy if you would get subscribed. Commenting and liking the video also really helps me out a lot. And as I always say, if you want to help a little bit extra, you can do so. You can become a supporting member of the channel for only $2.99 a month. It will support me, and you know, all of the cash go directly to the YouTube channel. I'm buying new games to cover on the channel, better equipment, stuff like that. You can also do a one-time donation, either through PayPal, the address you will find in the video description, or with YouTube Super Thanks. I prefer if you use PayPal, because YouTube will grab a 30% cut of your YouTube super thanks. Other than that, I just want to say thank you very much for watching this video, and apologies again for any, you know, any minor errors I might have done, or if I said something you didn't like. Sorry about that. Just trying to express my opinion here, guys. And again, thank you for watching. I will see you next time.